They didn't just leave her to die. They watched. In a temperature-controlled operations room outside Washington, D.C., the men who gave her the mission pulled up the satellite feed, confirmed the wreckage, and did something she had not expected. One of them laughed. "Let the Atlantic do the paperwork," he said. They closed the feed. They poured drinks. They believed it was over. They were wrong about everything. What follows begins with a woman floating in the North Atlantic, alive, 3 days after every law of biology said she should have been dead, and ends with the largest single evidence package ever transmitted to the Department of Justice in one encrypted file. What connects those two moments is a rifle that should not have existed, a secret buried inside it that brought down an entire shadow network, and a Navy commander who made one instinctive call that changed the course of a decade-long federal investigation. Stay until the end, because what she was carrying inside that rifle is something nobody saw coming. Not even the people who built her. In water hovering just above freezing, a person has 30 to 90 minutes of meaningful consciousness before muscles fail and the mind begins to drift. After 2 hours, death is almost certain. After 3 days, there is no protocol. No case study accounts for a human being alive after 72 hours in the winter North Atlantic. Which is exactly why Lieutenant Commander Jake Callahan's hands went still on the armrest of the rescue helicopter when his pilot's voice crackled across the headset. "Sir, you need to look at the water." Jake pressed his face to the window. Wreckage first. A section of hull riding the surface at an angle, gray against gray. Just another piece of debris in a search grid that had yielded nothing but cold water and disappointment. Then he saw her. "Bring us down," he said. "Sir." The temperature reading dash. "I know what it says. Bring us down." Ryan Holloway, his rescue swimmer, was already suiting up. 18 years in naval special warfare. He had never once hesitated at a jump. He hesitated now. The woman was on her back, pale as bone, lips the grayish blue that every survival medic learns to recognize, the color that means you're probably too late. And in her hands, locked against her chest, the way a person holds something they have already decided to die protecting, was a rifle. "Commander, she's got a weapon. The rifle comes with her. Do not separate them." Holloway went in. He reached her in under 2 minutes, and her eyes opened. He would describe it later, choosing his words carefully, because Holloway was not a man given to drama. "She looked at me the way you look at something when you're deciding whether or not it's a threat." 2 seconds. 2 of the most uncomfortable seconds of his professional life. "I'm Navy. I'm here to get you out." She didn't speak. She looked at him one more second. Then she let him take her. She never let go of the rifle. He didn't try to make her. Petty Officer Torres ran her vitals twice, certain his equipment was malfunctioning. Core temperature, critically low. Pulse steady. Pupils responsive. She was alive in a way that made no medical sense. The rifle was unlike anything Jake had seen. Not a weapon modified by a skilled armorer, but one engineered from the start for a singular purpose. Every component chosen to achieve something no standard platform could. He keyed his radio. "Base, this is Callahan. Female survivor. No identification, critical but stable. One item of interest accompanying her. Gimme Parker at the landing zone." Dennis Parker was waiting at the pad at Naval Air Station Eastport, Maine. When the medical team moved her to the stretcher, he got his first look at the rifle and said nothing for almost 10 seconds. "What do you see?" "Something that shouldn't exist. Manufacturing capabilities not publicly available, not linked to any program I know of." Parker turned. When someone holds a weapon like this with their last strength after 3 days in the ocean, "Commander, they're not protecting the weapon. They're protecting what's inside it." "Give me 4 hours," Parker said. "And nothing reported up the chain until I say so." Already planned on it. When the staff tried to remove the rifle while she was unconscious, she came awake the way a switch is thrown, hands repositioning before her eyes had focused. "You don't touch that." Quiet. Destroyed from exposure. Absolutely clear. Dr. Sarah Brennan told her where she was. Something crossed the woman's face, not relief. Calculation. How long was I out there? Approximately 3 days. Though I don't understand how that's possible. He's dead. Her eyes opened again, flat and tired. I need whoever's in charge of my rescue. Only him. She was sitting up when Jake arrived, which she should not have had the strength to do. The rifle leaned against the wall. She watched him with the same quality of attention Holloway had described. Not aggression, not fear. Evaluation. "Commander Callahan, Not a question. That's right. And you're Claire. For now. You ordered your team not to separate me from my weapon. Why? Because whatever was worth holding on to for 3 days in the Atlantic is worth understanding before anyone touches it. Something shifted in her expression. That was a good call. Then, when Parker tells you what he finds, come back here immediately. Don't report it. Come directly to me. Can you promise that? Jake thought about the order he'd already given Parker. Nothing reported. Stays in the room. I already did. Something shifted in her face. The look of someone who'd stopped expecting that answer. You pull me out of the ocean, Commander. I'm going to try very hard to make sure that doesn't get you killed. Torres appeared in the doorway, pale. Sir, Parker needs you. Now. Jake stood. At the door, Claire said, without looking at him, whatever number he shows you, whatever distance, it's real. Parker had commandeered a windowless maintenance room. One entry point, no network terminals. Martinez and Reyes flanked the door. Holloway sat with his eyes fixed on the table. The weapon itself is unlike anything in any catalog I have access to. Custom barrel, hybrid scope, hand-fitted trigger, built to do one thing at a distance no standard platform could achieve. Parker turned the laptop to face the room. There's a secondary compartment in the stock base, composite shell, self-sealing, waterproof to 40 meters. Inside, an encrypted data module. 3.5 hours to crack the outer layer. Inside that, ballistic records going back 4 years. 17 confirmed operations. Someone tasked her on all of them, and nobody was looking because the people controlling her believed she was completely theirs. Show me the last entry, Jake said. Parker scrolled. Stopped. Jake read the screen once, then again, because the first reading produced a number his brain refused to file correctly. Is this accurate? Verified 4 times. Say it out loud. 4,112 meters. 1 round. 1 confirmed kill. Crosswind of 22 miles per hour. Elevation differential of -14 feet. Projectile flight time, 6.8 seconds. Nobody spoke. Jake thought about what 6.8 seconds meant. A bullet climbing into sky and arcing back down across nearly 2.5 miles. Wind shifting, temperature changing air density. The Earth's own rotation introducing a drift requiring compensation. The stillness required in a body while the mind ran calculations most ballistics computers struggle with. The record, Martinez said. Not a question. The documented record is significantly shorter, Parker said. This exceeds any confirmed engagement by over 400 meters. The atmospheric data cross-references with the actual recorded weather at these coordinates on that date, which means this happened 3 days ago. Target designation? Jake said. Parker pointed to a line. Jake's hand, resting on the table, stopped moving entirely. Say that name out loud. Harold Stennett. The room went still. Stennett, whose name moved through defense, contracting circles the way certain mountains move through maps, massive and apparently permanent, whose company held classified contracts across 3 agencies, who had died 3 days ago in what was officially called a sudden medical event. Before we continue, please comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the She-Force Tales channel. He didn't have a medical event, Holloway said. No, and the woman we pulled from the ocean made the shot. Then someone destroyed her vessel and left her there, counting on the Atlantic to finish the job. Parker hesitated. There's something else. The outer partition isn't the whole module. There's a second encryption layer, and it wasn't built by the same people who built the first. She built it herself, Jake said. The outer partition is the mission record. The inner one is what she was collecting. 4,112 meters, Jake said when he returned to her room. Yes. Stennett. Yes. They tried to kill you after. Within 4 hours. I expected it. 14 seconds between understanding the charge had armed and detonation. The stock floats. I was already on the hull section before the explosion. She looked at the rifle. I'll open the inner partition. But first, the outer is what they tasked me to do. The inner is what I found while doing it. What did you find? Everything, she said. I found everything. She talked for nearly 2 hours. She'd grown up in foster care. 1 flat sentence, because the details weren't the point. At 15, a woman named Hartley came to a group home in western Pennsylvania and administered a non-standard mathematics assessment designed to find a specific kind of mind, one that felt where a solution lived before working out the proof. 3 weeks later, she was in a private facility in Vermont called an advanced educational program. For 2 years, it genuinely was. She excelled at trajectory modeling, the mathematics of objects moving through atmosphere under variable conditions. In year 3, the curriculum changed. A man named Greer, former military, became her sole instructor. Long-range precision work, real-time calculation. He told me I was being prepared to eliminate people who caused serious harm where conventional law enforcement couldn't reach. I was 17, and I'd spent my whole life in a system that never treated me as though I mattered. Yes, I believed him. She was operational by 21. The first targets checked out: arms traffickers, people funding groups that killed civilians. She verified each one afterward. 3.5 years in, she received the package for a journalist named Dana Kovac. The intelligence claimed Kovac moved money for criminal networks. What Claire found, over 4 days of her own research, was a Washington watchdog reporter building a story on financial networks tied to private defense contractors with a 7-year-old daughter. I reported a verification failure. Mission protocol. They told me verification was complete and the operation was proceeding. A pause. Greer came to see me in person. He never had before. He said, "You were chosen for your capabilities, not your judgment. Trust the mission." I refused, Claire said, in writing. Then I ran. 3 years of survival, collecting everything. Intercepted communications, financial records pulled through back-channel tools, every name and contract she could reach. Building the inner partition piece by piece. Stinnett controlled the contracting side. His contracts created the budget lines that funded operations through 12 layers of corporate structure. Every operation had a paper trail running through one of his subsidiaries. Prove the connection, and you prove the whole structure. She met his eyes. I needed Stinnett gone before I could move the evidence, because as long as he was operational, he could suppress any investigation within days. He'd done it before. Kovac's story was killed through 3 separate government channels within 72 hours. All 3 connected to his network. She's still alive. I confirmed that before I took the shot. Her story died. She didn't. The shot. Why now? Because I finally had everything I needed, and Stinnett was 3 weeks from activating something that would have reached a great deal further than bureaucratic channels. I had a window. I used it. And then they came for you. Within 4 hours. 14 seconds was enough. Something moved at the corner of her mouth. I'm good at calculations. Parker found the monitoring thread at 11:47, passive surveillance buried in the facility's communication infrastructure, pulling metadata without touching content, invisible to standard detection. The rhythm of the request was slightly too regular to be organic. They know she's here, he told Jake. Don't trace it. The moment we touch it, they'll know we know. How long before a recovery team could reach this facility? 6 hours minimum. Jake pushed Claire's door open. She read his face before he spoke. They found the monitoring thread. How did you know there was one? There's always one. It's part of the maintenance package from a contractor called Helix Systems Integration, a subsidiary of a holding company Stinnett controlled. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. There's a prosecutor, she said. Douglas Haynes, DOJ, working outside the contracting oversight structure. He's been building a parallel financial case for 3 years. He doesn't have what I have, but he's clean. I need a direct pathway to him that bypasses this facility's network entirely, something the thread can't read. Parker can build it. She looked at him steadily. I trusted you when you told Holloway not to separate me from the rifle. I'm still trusting you now. He found the wrong badge at 11:58. Facility personnel wore IDs on the left chest. Standard positioning drilled into every employee on their first day. This man's was on the right. A small thing. The kind of detail that would mean nothing to 99 people in 100. Jake had been tracking every badge in every corridor since the rifle landed on Parker's table. The automatic attention of someone trained to read details without appearing to. Jake stepped back into Claire's room and closed the door. We're moving now. She was already reaching for the rifle. The recovery team, designated Vantage 4-person cells, had a mandate that wasn't extraction, termination and retrieval. Don't split your attention when the distraction comes, she said. That's the Vantage signature. The distraction is the approach. He moved her to a windowless storage room in the northeast wing, off any current map, one entry point. Parker was already there, running cable for the transmission pathway. 40 minutes to configure the encryption, Parker said. You have 25. Reyes looked at Claire. What exactly are we protecting? She answered before Jake could. Evidence sufficient to dismantle a shadow network that's been running covert operations under government contract cover for over a decade. Financial records, operational logs, names, documented connections to 17 confirmed operations in 4 years. If that module doesn't reach a federal prosecutor in the next few hours, every person connected to those operations walks free permanently. The network closes the gaps and rebuilds under new structures. She met his eyes. That's what you're protecting. Reyes looked at Jake, then back at her. I'm in, he said, as though there had ever been a question. Claire opened the inner partition in 4 minutes of silence and turned the laptop to face Jake. Column after column of financial data, names he half recognized the way you recognize a shape in the dark. Contract numbers, dates matching events from official briefings that had been constructed specifically to keep anyone from connecting those dates correctly. Parker leaned over the screen and straightened slowly. 19 government contract designations in this first column. 3 of them active, currently funded, currently operational. He paused. This isn't historical, Commander. It's running right now. That's why the timeline mattered, Claire said. Stennett authorized 2 of the 3. Without him, those funding flows freeze within 72 hours. The third runs through a separate authorization chain. That name's in here too. Who? She scrolled. Stopped. Jake read the name twice. He looked at Parker, whose face had gone the color of someone connecting dots he didn't want connected. Start the transmission, Jake said. Everything. To Haynes. Now. 8 minutes in, 2 Vantage operators began moving away from their holding positions. Nobody gets through that door until the transmission completes. What followed was not a firefight. It was a containment. The first operator was intercepted by Martinez and Holloway together. Against a different team, he'd have been dangerous. But against the 2 of them in coordination, he had perhaps 6 seconds of active resistance before the geometry resolved. The second was caught near the comm room, trying to send a report. Reyes reached him before the connection completed. The third, a woman from the administrative section, simply walked away. Jake let her go. He needed her to carry the message. The transmission was confirmed, and there was nothing left to retrieve because the truth was no longer in this building. At 4:17 in the morning, the secondary wing went quiet. Commander. Parker's voice carried something he was working to keep out of it. Haynes confirmed receipt. The full transmission. He says the word he keeps using is historic. Jake looked at Claire, still standing where she'd been standing, the rifle in her hands. She hadn't fired a single round. Is it done? It's done. Haynes has everything. She looked at the rifle the way you look at something that's been part of you so long you have to consciously remember it's a separate object. Is it enough? She asked. Not about the evidence. Something older. Jake thought about Dana Kovac, still alive in Washington, and a 7-year-old girl whose mother had come home. It's enough, he said. There was a third partition. She told him 40 minutes later, over coffee Torres had brought her, and that she seemed to have forgotten was there. The inner partition gives Haynes enough to break the current network. The third is different. I didn't collect it. A pause. Greer gave it to me. The name landed like a stone in still water. He found me in Chicago 2 years ago. I had a weapon on him within 4 seconds. He didn't try to stop me. He just sat down, put a drive on the table, and said, "This is what I should have given you before you left." He'd been collecting for 9 years. He always knew what the network actually was. He stayed because he believed, for a long time, the targets were worth the compromise. Then there was one that wasn't. He flagged Kovac's file to me knowing exactly what I'd do, because he needed someone to refuse and couldn't refuse alone. An asset refusal, formally documented, creates a record inside the network's own system. A record that could be found. She looked at Jake. He needed me to be the line the network crossed, so the crossing would be on paper. He used you, Jake said. Not an accusation. A fact. Yes, I'm still deciding how I feel about that. But what he gave me is real, 22 years of operations. The names of the people who built this and decided it was worth building. The inner partition breaks the network running today. The third tells Haynes how it was built and who chose to build it. I transmitted it 11 minutes ago, she said. while you were reading the status update. Parker's pathway was still live. I used it. No apology. No performance. Parker's going to be annoyed you used his pathway without telling him. Something moved at the corner of her mouth, real this time. I'll apologize. He won't believe it, but he'll appreciate it. His radio clicked. Commander, Haynes confirmed receipt of the third petition. He's requesting authorization to elevate to a joint DOJ-FBI task force. A pause. He keeps saying historic. Tell him yes, Jake said. Whatever he needs. And tell him the woman who built it says use all of it. Torres appeared in the doorway. Commander, there's a call on the secure terminal, routed through Haynes's office. They're saying it's the Deputy Attorney General. Jake thought about a helicopter crew, seeing something impossible in the water. About Holloway in the freezing Atlantic, finding eyes that opened and evaluated him with terrible clarity. About 14 seconds, one round, for 1,112 meters, and a woman who had calculated, in the middle of all of it, that she would survive. She had always been right about the math. Tell them we'll call back in 10 minutes. He looked at Claire. Clean up first. You've been wearing the same clothes for 4 days. Something that had been building behind her eyes for hours broke through. Not tears. Something deeper. The release of a person who's carried an enormous weight alone for so long that other hands reaching for it produces a response the body enacts without permission. She laughed. A short, surprised, genuine sound. Gone in 3 seconds, and then she was composed again. 10 minutes, she said. She stood and reached for the rifle automatically, the way a hand moves to a place it's moved to 10,000 times. Then she stopped, looked at it, looked at Jake. Can you hold this? While I clean up. Jake took it. He'd held a great many weapons in his career, in the dark and in the cold, under conditions that required understanding exactly what a weapon was and what it cost. He had never held one that felt like this. It felt like testimony. Like 20 years of a person's life compressed into 4,112 meters of unforgiving mathematics. And at the end of it, an answer that was both an ending and a beginning. When she walked back in 7 minutes later, she said nothing because the moment didn't need words. Then she held out her hand. Jake gave it back. She slung it across her shoulder and looked at the door. Ready, she said. And in that single word, in the voice of a woman who had been left to die in the North Atlantic and come back carrying the storm, there was no performance, no relief, no drama. Just the clean certainty of someone who has finished one calculation and is prepared to begin the next. She walked out, and the truth walked with her, not because it needed her protection anymore, but because she had earned the right to be the one who carried it into the light.